Welcome to Nutty Buddy Entertainment.
Well, let's do it then. What were your general thoughts of it?
I really like the episode. Going off of last week where you had your concerns on it, it seemed like 45 minutes.
Mhm.
That was surprising when I looked at it, especially with most of them being at least 55 or so. So yeah, with end credits, it was probably closer to like 36 minutes or something like
Sure.
that. But yeah, I was surprised how much they were able to do with it, and I really enjoyed the finale. It was a good way to wrap it up and give us a little bit of a really good teaser for next season. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for me personally, it was okay.
okay.
I liked it, but I felt like there were some parts missing, and obviously there's going to be questions because they're setting up a season 2, so not everything's
Yeah.
going to be answered. But
Yeah.
there are some things that maybe I'll run by you, and then maybe you could be like, "Hey, this is what I thought of it," and then I'll change my mind on some things. But I thought it was okay. I liked it. I didn't think it was rushed, which was part of my problem with some of the other finales. I felt like it was well paced throughout the episode. That's the way
Yeah.
I felt when watching it, and it kind of also just flew by at the same time.
No, yeah. Yeah, and it had a really good end credit scene too.
Yeah.
Really good.
The action I felt was well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the specific things that happened then. Let's start with you, Brian. What is a takeaway that you'd like to talk about first when it came to this episode of the Moon Knight?
Yeah. Mark was dead, technically.
Yep.
So yeah. We were both kind of right. He had to bring balance to himself to, make it through the field of reeds. Is that it?
Yeah. So he left the field of reeds, right? Into the Duat.
what he went through
Yeah.
with Steven last week,
Mhm.
he made it through and he found balance. And then he chose not to stay and go back for Steven. So yeah, it was interesting. He actually did die, but he got resurrected back by Khonshu.
Correct. So that brings me to two questions I had about this episode, because obviously the hippo goddess, the being, was kind of like talking out of both sides of her mouth early on in the episode, right? Like because she was trying to get Layla to go help Mark and Khonshu, and then she was telling Mark in the field of reeds to like stay where you're at peace. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, so she's telling Mark one thing, but she's telling Layla another. So that kind of like contradict itself, if that makes sense. Did you see that too?
Yeah, I think it was for me, it seemed like when she was talking with Layla, Mark had decided to leave it. So she was then trying to help him get back. At that point, she gave him a chance to be like, you don't have to go back. You can be peace here, and you don't have to worry about what's going on there. So I think for me, I thought when she was talking with Layla, it was after the fact, and that was around the time when she was trying to help him escape through Osiris's gate. So
yeah, okay, yeah. So basically, they just didn't put it in order of the events in the episode then.
Yes, which it was kind of a little all over the place, because when they had killed those guards on the road, I think that was the point when Mark was seeing those souls coming through then. So it wasn't matching up exactly in the timeline, so you were kind of having to piece together when it was happening. So
okay, great point. Yeah, that's a good connection there. Okay, so then it brings me to sort of the second question, which I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but clearly there is a third personality. We don't have to get into that part of it. So my bigger question is how did Mark's heart balance when that personality exists?
I think there's something with Jake or I think more of Steven and Mark. They didn't, at least Mark didn't know what he wanted with Steven, so he was trying to hide it. And I think him finding balance was more him finding balance with Steven and them together, where Jake is not out of balance. He knows what he wants and what he needs to do. So he's the one that kind of comes out when, like, they
Mm-hmm.
don't know what to do. So I feel like maybe there was conflict between Steven and Mark, and for some reason, um, Jake really wasn't a factor in that. I'm not sure. That's what my thinking behind it was. Especially yeah, when he was basically, when Mark was getting defeated by Arthur, he didn't know what to do, and then all of a sudden he blacked out, and then everything was taken care of from that point. So
Yeah, which I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see that
I know.
personally.
You know
Okay.
what what's interesting is in like the end credit scene where it's going through the moons and stuff, and then it goes through these phases of the Moon Knight. The first phase is him kind of mummy wrapped with like a crescent head, and then it shifts into Mark's like Moon Knight, and then it goes into Steven's Mr. Knight. I wonder if Jake's is that first form that we see, where it almost looks like it's developing into Mark, but not quite. I was watching that last week, and then this week I'm like, I kind of think that's like Jake's version of the suit when he has it.
Interesting. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll get a little bit more
Yeah.
into the Jake part of it. But yeah, so that was my other question. I don't know if I totally, buy it, because like I gotta imagine if you're judging somebody's life, you judge their entire life and the balance of it. And what I'm saying, like, I don't understand how Jake's not involved in the process of that balancing and finding peace and all that stuff. That sort of doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I can see where you're coming from, where maybe
it also brings into with Arthur being, his scales being, unbalanced as well. I feel like there's kind of that turmoil within him of like, what he was doing with Khonshu wasn't good. What he's doing with Ammit is, for some reason his scales are unbalanced as well. And that's why my thinking with Jake is like he more so, as we see in the end, like he obviously knows what he's doing and what he wants, and he's not really taking into effect what Steven or Mark wants. So it's kind of a separate thing of maybe just Steven and Mark were that unbalanced as well. So
yeah, that's true. And the other thing is really Jake isn't performing, as far as we know, he isn't doing outside of anything outside the orders he's getting from Khonshu.
yeah.
So Khonshu has already judged these people. So technically, I guess, would he be doing anything, wrong? You know what I'm saying? So maybe it doesn't affect his heart. Okay.
Yeah.
So we get into the so let me start with something I guess was sort of intrigued by, or kind of like, and this is part of why I thought the episode was okay. So obviously he gets the power of Ammit. He goes to the temple of the gods, and Arthur does, and the avatars of the other 5 gods are there, and then they like shift over to what Layla was doing. By the way, we were right that Arthur didn't care where Layla was. Remember, we talked about that last week. He didn't even care about that.
Yep.
You also were right about the pendant. What's it called?
Penance.
Penance.
Yeah, with the glass. Yeah. We were both kind of right. He was, trying to do a penance thing, and then as well as what do I have in my notes here? I can't remember, but we were both kind of right with that. But yeah, he was conflicted as well. So
yeah. So anyway, so somehow I admit, like, just takes these avatars out, no problem. And I didn't like that, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, because he switched his staff, which I thought was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like, half axe, half crocodile head. Yep. And then he had, at that point, I don't know, does he have her powers now that he has her? But yeah, he basically shows up and like is able to just like use that and like overpower them, which he also said in the scene, like, you gods are not you're not warriors or something like that. So he made it seem like they don't know how to fight, or like could use power as much as he did. But yeah, Also, I was kind of like, did he kill them?
The avatars he killed. I don't think he
Okay.
killed
See,
the beings.
see, that was my only confusing part, is because, they wanted Ahmet to go into an avatar. And so then if they killed the avatar, they also killed her. So,
Oh, that's a good point. The only difference is that she's being trapped inside of him, whereas it's not a loyal.
okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is like so the what they said was, what he said is, you guys are judges, not warriors, is what he said.
Yes. Yep.
But it is still 5 against 1. And they have some sort of power, which we didn't get to see, which would have been really cool to like see each of their individual powers. Yeah. And then like, we'll talk about Layla, but like we see that avatars like give their, these gods give their avatars some sort of suit.
Yeah. Yep.
And none of them like put on any suits. You know what I'm saying?
Technically, Osiris wasn't a suit.
It's true. That's a fair point. But like they're like, yeah, we're just gonna fight like we are.
No, yeah, I don't know if it's just because they didn't want to like fight, so they've never really had to give them any, because it made it seem like those avatars weren't doing what Khonshu was doing, so they didn't really give them any protection outside of what they needed to do to like fulfill what they wanted out of the world or something like that.
Yeah, so that was what they mentioned, is like they gave up on us, right? And then we just got to do our thing, basically. I think that was in episode 3 or 4. Yeah. So anyway, so that was kind of a thing for me, is like I just didn't understand the whole Avatar storyline, the other gods Avatar storyline. I understand they wanted to trap Khonshu, and that's probably why they were there. So they had to somehow get rid of the avatars. So they're like, oh, well, they'll just show up and we'll just get rid of them, and then nobody can ask about it. But I just thought, well, that's pretty weak for these powerful beings. I'm not saying that they should have beat Amit, but it just seemed like she wasn't even released yet. This was before she was released.
Yeah, that is true. And especially because they said like in the chamber, their powers are, even more. So
correct. Yeah. So anyway, so that was another thing. I was like, come on. I mean, like it was still fine. And again, like the action scenes they did have were pretty cool, but that was one thing that bothered me when we got to that part. Thanks so much for watching this clip of our podcast here on Nutty Buddy Entertainment, where me and Brian break down the finale of the Moon Knight, episode 6, Gods and Monsters. If you'd like to listen to the rest of the podcast, click on one of the links down below or search Nutty Buddy Entertainment wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, let us also know in the comments below what you thought of the Moon Knight finale. Do you think it was good, and the series as a whole? Let us know. Thanks so much for listening. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you guys soon.